Most men walk into a room and disappear before they even speak. You are invisible because your body screams, "Pray." You fidget, you adjust your collar, you shift your weight from foot to foot, and you leak vulnerability through every pore of your skin. You are a ghost in your own life, haunting the hallways of your own existence, wondering why the world treats you like a background character in a story you are supposed to lead. It is because you have not yet learned the language of the silent sovereign. You are projecting weakness when you should be projecting an immovable fortress. You are broadcasting anxiety when you should be radiating a cold, calculated authority that demands recognition without a single spoken word. Thomas Shelby doesn't need a crown to be a king. He doesn't need to shout to be heard. He doesn't need to explain his presence to anyone. He uses nonverbal dominance to paralyze his enemies and command loyalty with the mere tilt of his head or the stillness of his frame. He understands a truth that the common man will never grasp. In the hierarchy of men, the one who moves the least is almost always the one who holds the most power. Today, I will give you the keys to his calculated coldness. I will show you how to strip away the nervous tics, the submissive tilts, and the wandering eyes that have kept you trapped in the shadows of mediocrity. You will no longer be ignored. You will be feared. You will no longer be an option. You will be the only reality that matters in the room. While Shelby mastered the industrial shadows of Birmingham in the early 20th century, Niccolò Machiavelli codified these laws of power in the 16th century. They both knew a fundamental truth that remains unchanged by time or technology. Power has a specific weight, a specific look, and a specific silence. The rules of engagement are ancient, written in the blood and the failures of those who refuse to master the vessel they inhabit. If you are ready to stop being a pawn in someone else's game and start playing the social chess of the elite, you must first master yourself. Subscribe now to this brotherhood of strategy. Comment, "I am the storm below," to signal your entry into the circle of power. This is not for the faint of heart. This is for the men who choose sovereignty over safety. The city of Birmingham is a landscape of soot, iron, and blood. But the church where Thomas Shelby meets Inspector Campbell offers a different, more suffocating kind of cold. When Tommy enters that sacred space, he isn't there for a confession. He is there to conduct a masterclass in psychological warfare. Inspector Campbell is already there, pacing the stone floor. He is a man of the law, a man with the weight of the British Empire behind him, yet he is visibly unraveling. His boots click rhythmically and frantically against the floor. He grips his lapels, his eyes darting toward the entrance, his breath visible in the freezing air. Campbell is trying to project authority through constant motion, but in reality, he is leaking his own desperation. He is a man who needs to be heard, who needs to be seen, and who needs to be acknowledged. Now look at Thomas Shelby. He is already seated in a pew, settled into the shadows like he was carved from the very stone of the building. He is a statue of granite. His hands are resting on the wood in front of him, not gripping it, not tapping it, just existing there in a state of absolute repose. His breath is shallow, rhythmic, and controlled. He doesn't turn his head when Campbell's footsteps echo closer. He doesn't offer the submissive courtesy of looking up to acknowledge the man who has the power to hang him. This stillness is not passive. It is an active, aggressive occupation of the moment. By refusing to move, Tommy forces the inspector to be the one who expends energy. He makes Campbell's movements look like the frantic buzzing of an insect trapped against a window pane. Tommy is the glass. He is the immovable object. Every second that Tommy remains still, the pressure on Campbell increases. The inspector begins to talk more, to shout louder, and to reveal his own hand, all because he cannot handle the weight of a man who refuses to fidget. To Thomas Shelby, movement is a confession of internal chaos. Every twitch of a finger, every adjustment of the peaky cap, every unnecessary shifting of weight is a signal to the enemy that you are uncomfortable in your own skin. And if you are uncomfortable, you are beatable. Tommy's psychology is rooted in the predator baseline. In nature, the apex predator does not move unless it is moving to strike. The rabbit, however, is constantly twitching, its nose moving, its eyes scanning, its body ready to bolt. Most men live their entire lives in the rabbit frame. They move because they are afraid of the silence. They move because they feel they must do something to be liked or respected. Tommy does the opposite. He understands that the human brain is evolutionarily wired to track motion. By remaining perfectly still, he becomes a terrifying anomaly. He becomes unpredictable. When you don't move, your opponent cannot read your intentions, your fears, or your next move. They begin to fill that stillness with their own insecurities. They wonder what you know that they don't. This is the architecture of psychological sovereignty. He isn't just sitting. He is radiating a frequency of absolute certainty that makes everyone else in the room feel like an intruder. This is the physical manifestation of what Niccolò Machiavelli described in O Principe regarding the gravity of a leader. Machiavelli taught that a prince must, above all else, avoid being perceived as fickle, frivolous, or effeminate. Fidgeting is the mark of a man who is controlled by his environment rather than the man who controls it. Machiavelli knew that the masses, and especially one's rivals, are moved by the majestas, the majesty of a leader. This majesty is built on a foundation of virtù, the ability to maintain one's composure and strategic direction regardless of the winds of fortune. When Tommy sits still while a man threatens his life, he is practicing the Machiavellian art of simulated indifference. He is signaling that Campbell's threats are so beneath him that they don't even warrant a physiological response. Machiavelli argued that it is better to be feared than loved, and nothing is more fearful than a man who appears to have no fear responses. By maintaining this air of gravity, Tommy protects his sovereignty and forces the world to adapt to his pace, rather than adapting to the world's chaos. Now look at the common man in your modern world. Observe him in a job interview, on a first date, or during a confrontation. He scratches his neck because he feels a phantom itch of anxiety. He checks his phone every 30 seconds because he can't handle the void of an empty moment. He nods his head like a bobblehead while his boss speaks, silently begging for approval. He is a man who is constantly apologizing for the space he occupies through small, submissive movements. He is a ghost. To transition from the ghost to the sovereign, you must implement the law of radiant stillness immediately. In your next high-stakes interaction, I want you to plant your feet and refuse to move them. If you are sitting at a table, place your hands flat on the surface or steeple them. Do not play with your pen. Do not adjust your watch. Do not touch your face. When someone tries to intimidate you or speaks to you with disrespect, do not react physically. Most people will instinctively pull back or lean in aggressively. Both are reactions. You will remain a statue. Let their words hang in the air. This creates a power vacuum. Humans are naturally uncomfortable with silence and stillness. They will feel an overwhelming urge to fill it. They will keep talking. They will start to over-explain themselves, and they will eventually hand you the very information or concession you need. This is how you play social chess. You don't win by moving more. You win by making the other person move until they trip. Practice this in low-stakes environments first. The grocery store line, the elevator. Stand still. Keep your head level. Breathe through your nose. Feel the tension you create in others simply by being a man who is at peace with the silence. In the modern world, where everyone is screaming for attention through constant motion, the man who remains still is the only one who truly commands it. Be the granite, not the dust. The eyes are not the windows to your soul. They are the barrels of a loaded weapon, and most of you are shooting blanks. You look away when a stranger catches your eye on the street. You blink rapidly when your boss questions your results. You look down at your shoes when a beautiful woman glances your way. Every time you break eye contact first, you are signing a treaty of surrender. You are telling the world that you cannot handle the heat of a direct human connection, that you are lower in the hierarchy, and that you are seeking permission to exist. This is the mark of the common man, a man who is domesticated, predictable, and easily discarded. Thomas Shelby lives in a world where a momentary lapse in visual dominance can mean a blade across the throat. Consider the negotiation with the Lee family in the mud-soaked fields of the English countryside. Tommy is surrounded. The Lees are violent, unpredictable, and they have every reason to end him right there. A knife is pressed firmly against his neck, the cold steel biting into his skin. In that moment, the biology of a normal man would scream for him to look down, to plead, or to scan for an exit. But Tommy Shelby does none of those things. He stares directly into the eyes of the man holding the blade. He doesn't blink. He doesn't squint in fear. He holds a gaze that is so steady, so cold, and so utterly devoid of panic that the man with the knife begins to feel like the one who is being hunted. Tommy isn't looking at the knife. He is looking through the man holding it, seeing the fear and the hesitation that lies beneath the bravado. By refusing to break eye contact, Tommy creates a psychological inversion. He becomes the predator in a situation where he should be the prey. He stares until the threat itself feels small, until the Lee family realizes they are dealing with a man who has already accepted his own death and therefore cannot be intimidated. The internal psychology of Thomas Shelby is built on the concept of visual sovereignty. He understands that eye contact is the most primal form of social measurement. When you hold someone's gaze, you are engaging in a silent war of attrition. You are testing the other person's presence. Tommy's eyes are a mask. He uses them to gather intelligence while providing none in return. He looks at people as if they are objects to be moved or obstacles to be cleared. This isn't about being tough. It's about being consequential. When you look away, you break the circuit of power. When you hold the gaze, you maintain the flow of dominance. Tommy knows that the first person to look away is the one who has admitted that the other person's reality is stronger than their own. He doesn't just look at people. He occupies their visual field until they are forced to acknowledge his authority. It is a form of nonverbal hypnosis that leaves his enemies feeling exposed and his allies feeling intensely observed. This is the living embodiment of Niccolò Machiavelli's instruction that a prince must always appear to be a man of great consequence. Machiavelli understood that the majority of men are judged by what they seem to be, rather than what they are. To be a man of consequence, you must project an image of unshakable resolve. Holding a gaze is the fastest way to signal that you possess a principe soul, a spirit that is not easily moved by the threats or the charms of others. Machiavelli argued that if you must choose between being loved and being feared, you should choose fear, because fear is maintained by a dread of punishment which never fails. In the context of body language, that punishment is the crushing weight of your unwavering attention. When you refuse to break eye contact, you are telling the opponent that you are prepared for whatever comes next. You are showing them that you are the one who judges, the one who evaluates, and the one who decides the outcome of the interaction. You are projecting a sovereignty that suggests you are the master of the situation, exactly as Machiavelli prescribed for those who wish to hold on to their power. In the modern world, this is your most potent tool for social chess. The common man is addicted to his phone and his own internal anxieties. He rarely looks anyone in the eye for more than a second. When you enter a room, do not scan the floor. When you speak to someone, do not let your eyes wander to the distractions around you. I want you to practice the sovereign stare. When you finish a sentence, do not look away to see if they agree. Hold the gaze. Let the silence stretch. This is what I call the 5-second hold. After the conversation reaches a natural pause, keep your eyes locked on theirs for an extra 5 seconds before calmly breaking away. This creates an almost unbearable tension that forces the other person to see you as a high-value individual. In professional settings, this makes you appear more competent and trustworthy. In social settings, it makes you appear mysterious and sexually dominant. You are training yourself to be comfortable with the heat of another person's attention. If you can hold the gaze of a man who is trying to intimidate you, you have already won the fight before it begins. You are no longer looking for approval, you are looking for submission. The Garrison pub used to be a place for the working class to drown their sorrows, but when Thomas Shelby takes it over, he transforms it into a throne room. The scene of him entering the pub after his family has secured control is a masterclass in territorial expansion. Most men enter a room like they are guests in someone else's house. They keep their shoulders tight, they stay near the exits, and they wait to be told where to sit. Tommy Shelby enters the Garrison like he owns the very air inside it. He doesn't just walk to the bar, he drifts to the most central, most dominant booth. He sits down, but he doesn't sit like a commoner. He leans back, spreading his arms across the top of the leather cushions, claiming every inch of the bench. He puts his feet up on the table, a gesture of absolute disrespect to the previous order and absolute ownership of the new one. He isn't asking for space, he is occupying it. He has created a zip code of power around himself, and anyone who enters that radius must do so on his terms. The psychology behind this is called environmental anchoring. Tommy knows that your physical footprint dictates your social status. By expanding his frame, he is signaling that he is not under threat. In nature, a threatened animal makes itself small to hide or to protect its vitals. An animal that is dominant and secure makes itself as large as possible. Tommy's relaxation is his greatest weapon. By spreading his arms and legs, he is exposing his torso, the most vulnerable part of the human body. This is a high-level dominance display. He is saying, I am so powerful, and this space is so clearly mine, that I don't even need to protect myself. This creates an aura of invincibility. When he sits in the center of the room with his frame expanded, he becomes the sun around which everyone else must orbit. He dictates the geometry of the room. He isn't just a man in a pub. He is the pub. He has integrated his physical presence with the environment until they are one and the same. This is a direct application of the Machiavellian principle that it is much safer to be feared than loved, specifically through the assertion of territorial dominance. Machiavelli noted that a ruler who does not occupy his territory with strength will soon lose it. In a social sense, your territory is the space immediately around you and the room you are currently in. If you do not claim it, someone else will. By occupying space with a calculated threat of presence, you are signaling to potential rivals that you are not a man to be trifled with. Machiavelli believed that a leader must project an image of strength to prevent challenges before they even arise. When you take up space, you are asserting your virtue, your ability to impose your will on the world. You are demonstrating that you are not afraid of confrontation, because a man who is afraid shrinks. A man who is sovereign expands. This territoriality serves as a silent warning. This is my domain. Here, I set the rules. The common man in the modern era is constantly shrinking. He sits on the subway with his knees together and his elbows tucked in, trying to be as invisible as possible. He sits at his desk at work like he's trying to hide behind his monitor. He walks through life with a submissive frame, signaling to every predator and every competitor that he is a safe target. You must break this habit immediately. To master territorial expansion, you must begin to treat every room you enter as if you already own the deed. When you sit in a meeting, don't huddle over your notebook. Spread your materials out. Lean back in your chair. Rest an arm on the empty seat next to you if it's available. When you stand, keep your feet shoulder-width apart and your chest open. This isn't about being obnoxious. It's about being expansive. The next time you are in a public space, a cafe, a lounge, or a boardroom, consciously choose to occupy more space than you think you need. Notice how your internal state changes when your body is expanded, your cortisol levels drop, and your testosterone rises. You begin to feel the sovereignty that Thomas Shelby feels. You will notice that people will start to give you a wider berth when they walk past you. They will instinctively hesitate before interrupting you. You have created a psychological barrier that demands respect. You are no longer a guest in the world. You are the architect of your own atmosphere. You are the one who defines the boundaries. Occupy your space with such conviction that the world has no choice but to recognize your reign. Your emotions are the cracks in your armor, and every time you let a flicker of fear, anger, or even excitement dance across your face, you are handing your enemy a map of your soul. Most men are open books. They wear their hearts on their sleeves and their anxieties in the corners of their mouths. When they are insulted, they flush red. When they are intimidated, their eyes dart like trapped animals. They are slaves to their own biology, reacting to every external stimulus like a puppet dancing on strings of dopamine and cortisol. To the trained eye, these men are not threats. They are merely puzzles waiting to be solved and then discarded. If you want to move through the world with the sovereignty of a ghost, you must develop what I call the micro-expression shield, a mask of stone that remains unshakable, even when the world is burning around you. Consider the high-stakes confrontation between Thomas Shelby and the mercurial Alfie Solomons in the dimly lit, claustrophobic basement of Alfie's warehouse. Alfie is a man of chaos, a theatrical genius of intimidation, who uses words and sudden outbursts of violence like a sledgehammer. In this specific exchange, Alfie is screaming, his face contorted with a mix of calculated rage and genuine madness. He is questioning Tommy's morality, accusing him of crossing a line that even men like them shouldn't cross. He is inches from Tommy's face, his breath hot, his voice a gravelly roar that fills the room with an almost physical pressure. A gun is present. Death is a whisper away. A common man in this situation would be leaking micro-expressions of pure terror. His pupils would dilate, his jaw would tighten, and he would likely be blinking rapidly to process the sensory overload. But look at Thomas Shelby. He is a void. His face is a masterpiece of indifference. As Alfie bellows and paces, Tommy remains anchored in a state of absolute physiological neutrality. His eyes do not widen. They remain heavy-lidded and focused, like those of a predator watching a storm from the safety of a cave. There is no twitch in his cheek, no tightening of his lips, no sign that his heart rate has moved a single beat above its resting pace. He denies Alfie the one thing every aggressor craves: feedback. By remaining a mask of stone, Tommy forces Alfie to keep escalating, to keep burning his own energy, until Alfie eventually exhausts himself against the immovable wall of Tommy's silence. Tommy's internal psychology in this moment is one of total, emotional compartmentalization. He has pushed his survival instincts into a dark corner of his mind, allowing his cold, strategic intellect to remain in total command of his facial muscles. He understands that in the theater of power, the man who shows nothing is the man who can do anything. This is the dark alchemy of Machiavelli's simulated indifference. In The Prince, Machiavelli famously noted that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are. He taught that a sovereign must be a master of disguise and dissimulation. To hold on to power, you must be able to project whatever face the situation requires, but more importantly, you must be able to project no face at all. The common man believes that honesty and transparency are virtues, but in the Zadres social of the elite, they are often just labels for strategic weakness. Machiavelli argued that a prince must be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves. But the fox's greatest tool is not his teeth. It is his ability to blend into the shadows. When you maintain a neutral baseline, you are effectively invisible to the psychological radar of your enemies. You become a black hole in the conversation, pulling in their secrets while revealing none of your own. You are practicing the ultimate Machiavellian virtue, the total preservation of your internal sovereignty against the intrusions of the external world. In the modern landscape, your ability to maintain this micro-expression shield will determine your height in the hierarchy. Whether you are in a high-pressure corporate negotiation where millions are at stake, or in a heated personal argument where your respect is on the line, the rule is the same. The first person to lose control of their face loses the lead. The common man reacts instantly to a slight. He scowls, he argues, he defends his ego. You will do the opposite. You will adopt a neutral baseline. When someone attempts to provoke you, I want you to feel the surge of emotion, acknowledge it, and then intentionally kill it before it reaches your surface. Practice what I call the 3-second mask. Before you respond to any emotionally charged statement, hold a neutral expression for 3 full seconds. Do not smile to soften the tension. Do not frown to show your displeasure. Simply exist. This creates a profound sense of cognitive dissonance in the other person. They expect a reaction. When they don't get one, their brain begins to malfunction. They start to wonder if they've made a mistake. They begin to fear your silence more than they would fear your anger. You apply this in your career by being the one who remains calm when a project fails or when a superior barks an order. You apply this in your relationships by being the immovable rock that cannot be swayed by emotional manipulation. By mastering your micro-expressions, you are telling the world that your internal state is not for sale. You are signaling that you are the captain of your own ship, and that no storm, no matter how loud, can force you to change your course. You are the architect of your own mask, and behind that mask, you are building an empire. Time is the only currency that truly matters, and most men spend it like they have an infinite supply. They rush their words, they stumble over their sentences, and they move with a frantic energy that screams of their own insignificance. To speed is to be a servant. To be slow is to be a master. The world waits for the man who knows his own value, yet the common man is terrified of making the world wait. He fills every silence with, ah, or like, because he is deathly afraid that if he stops talking, the world will realize he has nothing important to say. He is a man who is constantly chasing the rhythm of others, a puppet dancing to a tempo he did not choose. If you want to occupy a position of absolute authority, you must master the art of vocal dominance and the calculated pause. You must learn that your voice is a tool of architecture, and silence is the foundation upon which your power is built. Recall the chilling meeting in the back room of the garrison between Thomas Shelby and the representatives of the IRA. These are men of high-level violence, men who are used to being feared, and they have come to demand answers about the stolen shipment of government rifles. The air is thick with the scent of tobacco and the unspoken threat of an execution. The IRA men are leaning in, their voices sharp and demanding, trying to force Tommy into a corner. They want him to talk, to explain, to plead for his life. They are trying to dictate the pace of the interaction, using their perceived status to rush him into a confession or a deal. They are the aggressors, and they expect the submissive speed of a man who knows his life is on the line. But Thomas Shelby does not follow their rhythm. He creates his own. He takes a long, slow drag from his cigarette, the orange cherry glowing in the dim light. He exhales a cloud of smoke that lingers in the air between them, creating a visual barrier of indifference. The seconds stretch into a painful, agonizing silence. The IRA men shift in their seats. Their confidence begins to leak. They had a plan for a man who talks. They have no plan for a man who simply looks at them through a veil of smoke. When Tommy finally does speak, his voice is low, resonant, and incredibly slow. Each word is chosen with surgical precision. He doesn't rush to answer their questions. He answers the questions he wants them to have. By controlling the tempo of the conversation, he has effectively disarmed them. He has turned a life-threatening interrogation into a negotiation where he holds the gavel. His silence has drained their momentum, making his eventual words carry the weight of a death sentence. The internal psychology here is a mastery of temporal control. Tommy knows that the person who sets the pace of the conversation is the person who leads it. By using the calculated pause, he is signaling that he is not intimidated by the presence of his enemies or the weight of their demands. He is forcing them to exist in his reality. Most men talk fast because they are subconsciously afraid of being interrupted. Tommy talks slowly because he knows that no one in the room has the courage to stop him. His mind is not racing to catch up. It is 3 steps ahead, using the silence to observe the micro-expressions and the nervous shifts of his opponents. He uses the pause as a vacuum, sucking the confidence out of the room and replacing it with his own unshakable presence. He isn't just speaking. He is performing an act of vocal colonization. This reflects the Machiavellian insight that a leader's words must be rare and carry the force of law. Machiavelli believed that a prince should be a man of few words, for a man who speaks too much eventually speaks nonsense or reveals his own weaknesses. In The Prince, the idea of vocal parsimony is a key component of maintaining the aura of the sovereign. If you speak quickly and constantly, you become familiar, and familiarity breeds contempt. If you speak slowly and only when necessary, your words are treated like gold. Machiavelli understood that the masses are moved by the gravity of a man who seems to have a profound internal world that he only occasionally chooses to share. By embracing the pause, you are demonstrating that you are a man of conseguenza, a man whose thoughts are too heavy to be rushed. You are practicing the art of being rare, which in the economy of power is the only way to be valuable. To apply this in your modern social chess, you must implement the 3-second rule. From this moment forward, when anyone asks you a question, especially a question designed to put you on the spot, you will wait 3 full seconds before you begin to speak. You will not fill that time with nervous sounds. You will simply look at the person, allow the silence to do the work, and then deliver your answer at 70% of your normal speed. In professional meetings, this will make your contribution seem more thoughtful and authoritative. In social interactions, it will make you the most intriguing person in the room. The common man is a slave to the urge to appease. He feels a physical pain in the silence and rushes to fix it. You will become a master of the silence. Stop using filler words like so, and basically. These are the verbal tics of a man who is afraid of losing his turn to speak. If you need a moment to think, take it in silence. This demonstrates an immense level of sovereignty. It shows that you are comfortable with your own thoughts and that you do not require the constant validation of a back-and-forth dialogue. When you speak slowly, you force the other person to lean in, to focus, and to enter your frame of reality. You are training the world to listen to you. You are signaling that your time is more valuable than theirs. By mastering the rhythm of your voice, you are mastering the minds of those around you. You are no longer just a participant in the conversation. You are the one who decides when it begins, when it ends, and what it truly means. The most dangerous man in any room is not the one shouting the loudest, nor is it the one reaching for his weapon in a panic. It is the man who looks like he is sitting in his own living room while the world outside is being torn apart by a hurricane. This is the invisible threat, a psychological phenomenon where your absolute comfort in the face of chaos signals to everyone else that you have already won. Most men, when faced with a threat, experience a biological hijacking. Their heart rate spikes, their muscles tense, their breathing becomes shallow, and their bodies prepare for a desperate struggle for survival. This tension is visible to the naked eye. It is the smell of blood to a predator. If you look like you are struggling to keep your composure, you have already lost the lead. To be a sovereign, you must master the art of being unshakable, not because you don't feel the heat of the fire, but because you have decided that the fire is your natural element. Consider the moment when the Sicilian mafia, led by the impeccably dressed and terrifyingly cold Luca Changretta, arrives in Birmingham to deliver a death sentence to the entire Shelby family. Luca is the embodiment of traditional vendetta power. He is smooth, aggressive, and carries the weight of the Black Hand. He enters Thomas Shelby's office, a space Tommy has carefully curated as his sanctuary of strategy. Luca is leaning in, placing the Black Hand cards on the desk, explaining in graphic detail how he intends to slaughter every single person Tommy loves. The stakes could not be higher. This is not a business dispute. This is an existential threat from an enemy with superior numbers and a thirst for blood. A common man in this position would be rigid. His hands would be clenched into fists under the table, his posture would be defensive, and he would be scanning the room for any possible way out. But observe Thomas Shelby. As Luca Changretta pours out his threats, Tommy remains in a state of high-status relaxation that borders on the insulting. He sits back in his chair, his frame open and vulnerable. He reaches for a cigarette with a hand that is as steady as a surgeon's. He lights it with a slow, deliberate flame, never taking his eyes off the man who has come to kill him. He pours a glass of whiskey, the liquid barely rippling as it hits the glass. His body language screams one thing: "You do not scare me." By remaining relaxed while his life is being threatened, Tommy is performing a neurological coup. He is telling Luca that his death sentence is nothing more than a minor administrative detail. This comfort in the middle of a massacre is Tommy's ultimate shield. It creates an aura of invincibility that makes Luca, the aggressor, feel like he is the one who is out of his depth. Tommy isn't just ignoring the threat. He is consuming it and turning it into fuel for his own dominance. The internal psychology of this move is the decoupling of stress. Tommy has trained his nervous system to separate the external stimulus of a threat from his internal physical manifestation. He understands that the moment he allows his body to become rigid, he loses his ability to think strategically. Rigid muscles lead to a rigid mind. By forcing his shoulders to drop, his breath to remain deep, and his hands to remain loose, he is maintaining access to his higher-order thinking. He is staying in the executive frame. While Luca is operating from a place of emotional vendetta, Tommy is operating from a place of cold, calculated architecture. His relaxation is a weapon because it is unpredictable. An enemy knows how to fight a man who is angry or afraid. They have no idea how to fight a man who is calm in the face of his own execution. It signals to the enemy that you have a plan they cannot see, a resource they haven't accounted for, or a level of power that makes their current threat irrelevant. This reflects the ultimate Machiavellian pursuit of the end justifies the means, but applied to the preservation of the self. Machiavelli argued in The Prince that a leader must be able to adapt his nature to the winds of fortune. If fortune is cruel and chaotic, the leader must be the eye of the storm. Machiavelli understood that the perception of security is just as important as security itself. If a prince appears to be in total control, his subjects will follow and his enemies will hesitate. The moment a prince shows panic, his authority dissolves like salt in water. By projecting an aura of unshakable security, even when the situation is objectively disastrous, you are practicing the Machiavellian art of strategic certainty. You are refusing to give the enemy the satisfaction of seeing the prince falter. You are maintaining your sovereignty over your own physical vessel, which is the first and most important territory any leader must govern. In the modern landscape of high-stakes business, legal battles, and social conflict, this is your final level of mastery. The common man is a victim of his environment. When things go wrong, he looks like things are going wrong. When he is under pressure, his voice goes up an octave, his movements become jerky, and he looks like he's about to break. You will do the opposite. When the deadline is looming and everyone else is panicking, you will move 20% slower. When someone is screaming at you in a conflict, you will lean back and breathe. This is not about being lazy, it is about being the anchor point of the room. I want you to practice the predator's pulse. In your next high-stress situation, consciously scan your body for tension. Are your shoulders near your ears? Drop them. Is your jaw clenched? Relax it. Are your hands tight? Open them. By intentionally relaxing your muscles during a crisis, you are sending a signal to your own brain that you are safe, which allows you to remain the smartest person in the room. You are also sending a terrifying signal to your opponent, that their best shot hasn't even made you flinch. This is how you win an argument without saying a word. This is how you dominate a negotiation when you have the weaker hand. You don't win by being the strongest, you win by being the one who refuses to be moved. You are the rock upon which the waves of chaos break and disappear. In a world of frantic, vibrating men, your calm is a superpower. It is the signature of a man who has already mastered the outcome because he has first mastered himself. Real power is not a scream. It is a whisper that everyone feels the need to lean in to hear. It is not a violent movement. It is the immovable stillness of a mountain that forces the world to change its path. Through this journey into the dark psychology of Thomas Shelby and the cold logic of Machiavelli, you have been given the blueprint to reconstruct your physical existence. You are no longer permitted to be a ghost, a common man, who leaks his vulnerability through every nervous twitch and submissive glance. You are the architect of your own architecture of power. The way you sit, the way you look, and the way you refuse to be hurried by the frantic rhythm of the masses, these are the stones with which you build your empire. Sovereignty is not something that is given to you by a title or a crown. It is something you earn in the silence, through the absolute command of the vessel you inhabit. The transformation you seek will not happen through observation alone. It requires the ruthless application of these laws in the world of the living. I am issuing you a final challenge, a protocol to be followed for the next 7 days, without exception. For the next week, you will adopt the shadow frame. You will eliminate all unnecessary movements, no fidgeting, no scratching, no adjusting your clothes in public. You will never be the first to break eye contact, regardless of who is standing in front of you. You will speak 30% less than you do now, and when you do speak, you will embrace the silence of the calculated pause. You will walk through the world as if you already own every room you enter, and you will meet every stressor with a cold, deliberate relaxation. This is your training ground. This is where the pawn dies and the king is born. You are no longer a part of the mass that reacts to the world. You are the one who dictates the world's reaction to you. The common man will continue to rush, to twitch, and to beg for approval. Let him. His irrelevance is your advantage. Your silence is your sovereignty. Your coldness is your protection. From this moment on, you are the predator in the social chess of the elite. Do not look for permission. Do not look for validation. Look only for the path to your own reign. Stay cold. Stay silent. Build your empire in the shadows until it is too large for the world to ignore. See you in the next shadows of power.